Hello, everyone, and welcome to Transforming Today Show. I'm your host, Rebecca Weintraub, and I help people discover, develop, and strengthen their intuition. And today I have as my guest, Bev Ehrlich. How are you, Bev?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm good, thank you. And thank you for hosting me today. It's lovely to be with you as always.
I am so glad you're here with me, and I always love your energy. It's so light, it's so joyous, and it's so peaceful, so I'm really enjoying
Thank you.
You're welcome. So tell our viewers sort of on a high level how you help your clients.
Okay, so I'm a dream coach and I help them understand what their dreams are, get clear on what their dreams are, understand their passion, why they're here, what their gifts are for this world, uncover the obstacles that are in their way, understand how their lineage affects who they are as adults today, and then I inspire and energize them to take their next steps.
And I know we've talked about before how, there's a concept in coaching where it's hard to take someone where you haven't been before. It's to be able to relate to your clients as they're going through their own transformation, to be able to hold them and carry them in a way where you kind of know what's next, not specifically for them, but just so that you can give them that support that they need. I assume that you went through this in order to be able to do this with your clients. Can you talk a little bit about what your transformation looked like?
So yes, I'll tell you what my transformation looked like, but I am at the moment also being supported by a coach for that very reason of going to places that are unlit with me, because I can't take my clients deeper than I've been before. So I can't just preach the word without actually really being in spaciousness and acceptance. So 2 dreams that I can share that I've accomplished is one was as a young woman to leave South Africa and come and live in Israel. I know when I was dating men, that was kind of what I was looking for, somebody who shared the same dream. And I met my husband, and that is a dream that we have wonderfully accomplished. The other more recent dream that I've worked on is I was a teacher in a great job, getting a great salary. And over the last 2 years, I kind of realized I'm not showing up as my best. And when I explored that a little bit more with myself, I went inside, I realized I'm done here. And if I stay here any longer, I'm actually going to do damage, or this just isn't the place for me anymore. I need to make space for someone else to come in and do this wonderful work. And there was something else calling me. And I realized it was helping people accomplish their dreams, because I don't know anything more powerful in this life than knowing who we are, what we want, and how we're going to achieve it. Because people who live dream come true lives are really doing amazing things for themselves, for their families, for their communities, and those who choose to, for the world at large.
So the first thing I think about when I think of dreams, and maybe we can rewire this at some point in my life, but one thing that naturally comes up is thinking, there's a lot of theories as to why people do not go after their dreams. And the biggest one I can think about is fear. And I'm wondering if you can talk about how fear played a factor in your own transformation, and how you also help clients overcome that if they have them.
Right. So fear usually sits on something else. It could even be a fear of not being loved. If I do this, people are going to laugh at me. People are going to think I'm crazy. So there could be that fear. And fear very often masks exactly what we want. It could be fear of success. And that's really what I want, or fear of living a life of freedom. So it's firstly understanding what is it that you're afraid of, and then accepting that. A lot of my work is based in presence, where I don't try and shift away and live in distraction from how people are feeling. Let's just feel that. How are you feeling now? And that in itself opens up to spaciousness. That sense of acceptance just calms one's nervous system down. And from there, You feel empowered and strong to get into action. And the other aspect of that, the practical aspect, is sometimes we're overwhelmed. Fear is also about being overwhelmed because the project seems so big. Into tinier steps than you've ever taken before. When I have that reaction where people smile, like, really? That's all it is? Yes, that's just the first step. We're going to do it step, 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 because unfortunately, my magic wand is broken. So we have to go through a process.
Hmm. And isn't it so much better that we go through the process rather than having it instantly sort of take it that fear and anything that's attached, the anxiety, all the hardship that we might think. Isn't it wonderful that we can actually go through that journey to work through it, not around it,
Yes,
but through it?
it is wonderful, Rebecca, because it's such a beautiful thing that you bring up. It is wonderful because from there we grow. And the more we grow, the more we can give to others, more we can do good in this world. It's not just about somebody coming to me and staying with me for the rest of their lives. No, it's about being reminded of their beauty and their empowerment so that they can take the failures that they've experienced, the lessons that they've learned, and impart that, because people are waiting for our messages, but not everybody resonates with me. So I have a client who the world's waiting for him. And that's what I want to do. I want to help people move on and give to the world in the best way that they can, because I really, really believe we're put here with everything we need. We don't need anything else, but we need to know how to use, and I should say rather, we need to know how to use those gifts. But we've all got them.
So let's talk about patterns, because that actually came up for me when you were talking. It's like when, if you think of life in terms of lessons,
Yes.
uh, and not necessarily challenges, but like, I always believe in an outer power that is a teaching power
Mm-hmm.
rather than a testing power, right? And so
Beautiful.
think of it in terms of teaching, then it's lessons, right? That
Yes.
receiving lessons. And when you think about like the same lessons that you do over and over again, there's clearly a pattern there. And it's funny because right now I'm literally buying a house and selling a house for the third time within, I don't know, 3 years or 4 years. And so I'm thinking, what am I still needing to learn from this, right? Like this still keeps coming up. Like what else do I have to learn from this? So when you discover patterns with your clients, how are you navigating those patterns? And if they want to show up differently in life, how are you helping them sort of unplug from the pattern and really be present and live the way they want to?
Right. So very often a pattern is something that we've learned in childhood. It's the story that we've been told about ourselves or that we believe about ourselves that we've brought possibly unresolved into our adult life. So if I think of myself as an excavator, I like to sometimes look back and see what the messages were you were taught as a child, what you were given. Stay there, see who that child is, and bring that child into the adult, not to deny, but bring that child into the adult. And very often, if there was wounding, there are gifts within that too that we can bring into ourselves and again to share with others. So that's how I see patterns. And there might be something unexplored with why you need to move home so frequently, that you might want to look at with yourself. And maybe there is no lesson to learn. You just would like to move into a new place, or it doesn't always mean there's tremendous depth to it. It could be just something that you want to do or not. Or not that you want to do or not, that you want to do without it meaning anything in this particular case.
You said something that completely shifted my perspective, and it is so beautiful. This concept of, and maybe this isn't what you said, but this is what came up for me when you said it. You said something to the effect of, when we grow from the child into the adult, it occurred to me that there are a lot of things that we did not receive guidance with or on. And I'm working with a client right now who felt as though they never were taught leadership. And
Beautiful.
so it's something that we are now working on, as far as we're accepting that he didn't receive it, but we're talking about how he can be a leader now. And the beautiful part of it is that he is taking ownership of that, and he is now attempting to lead his family, because
Beautiful.
he and his family are all adults now, and there's no limit. Like, a limiting belief is that, well, they're still my parents, so how could I possibly lead them? They're my parents. But
Right.
it really is just a limiting belief. And so I love that you said that, because it's very possible that, you know, we remain in these patterns because we were never taught how to grow through them or grow into
Yes.
that adult self. So, you know, I assume that's something that you do with your clients. You help them go from child
Absolutely.
to adult. Can you talk
Well,
more about that?
I just wanted to say what you were saying about the beliefs. Our beliefs are never neutral. They either push us forward or hold us back. And sometimes they don't even serve us anymore. And it's so wonderful to look at that in order for the adult to move forward.
So I kind of, maybe I'm being selfish, but I really want to sit here and kind of talk about this a little bit more. Like, when you discover that one of your clients is still sort of sitting in that childlike space, and
Yes.
it's detrimental to them, what does that work look like, shifting them through from that childlike state into a present adult state?
Okay, great question. So the first stage is to be in acceptance. If we think that we have several, I would say, intimate relationships in our lives, let's say with our parents, with our siblings, with our spouse, with our children, with our grandchildren, there seem to be different rules for them of acceptance. So sometimes a husband might ask for something and the children might ask for the same thing, but the wife's response will be, to her children, it'll be an expansive response. To the husband, it might be a narrow response. So the first stage is to help my client feel accepted, because that is very often what they didn't feel as a child. If this comes up, how does that feel? How are you feeling now? How did you feel as a child? Well, I felt scared. To accept that first. And once you have that acceptance, and you can open that range of emotion, then, as I said, that nervous system, once nervous system calms down, then you're open to the conversation. You're open to what next? How can I incorporate that into the adult? Sometimes it might be you feeling fear now as an adult as well. Is that the adult feeling the fear or the child?
Yeah, the word that came up for me this time, more so than fear, is actually anxiety, because you're not getting what you receive as the child, and you're not feeling
Right.
accepted, and you're not feeling, I guess, loved in the way that you're not feeling accepted.
Because we're so conditioned as children to behave at a very narrow bandwidth. You know, if a child's crying, it could be, well, the parents will say he's hungry or he's tired, but really he's just angry. So what we want to do is give children, real children, the words to express how they're feeling, to give them that range so they can say, no, as you said, it's not fear I feel, it's anxiety, it's frustration, it's deep anger that I'm feeling. And very often as adults, we haven't been allowed to have that range. And so we behave in a very narrow bandwidth that's really around our heads very often. And we forget about our heart, our emotions, our bodies, our spiritual self. They're all there. They're all changing and interacting at a different pace. We don't always have the same emotional level that we do the mental state. But we are slaves to our mental state rather than our mental state being slaves to what we want. We're guided by our mental state so often.
So I can't not say this because it occurred to me that I assume when you were teaching, it was younger children. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Was it middle school or?
Junior,
Yeah.
elementary, you would say.
Okay. So, so there's a gap between the child who's experiencing this right now in real time, where they're not having their needs met, between that and the adult who is now trying to heal anything that they didn't receive as a child. Um,
Yes.
you know, do you see yourself ever working with younger folks to actually bridge that gap a lot sooner than waiting until they're an adult?
Right, I do. They say till about 7, a child learns all these rules and regulations, if you like. So from about 10, children are coachable. So for sure I do. I don't divorce them from the parents. It's often the parent who makes the request. So I like to see that parent and child sees the problem the same way. But I wouldn't say it's about fixing. Um, it's really about how to see and accept all the parts of you, and to see what gifts you've been given because of those woundings, if you like, to give to the world. So I do work with children more on a one-on-one, not in the classroom setting anymore, but yeah, in this room.
So, like, I'm wondering what the difference, and I know everybody, each person, each individual is different, but I'm
Yes,
wondering what the work looks like the difference between when you work with a young child or a young adult, and when you're working with an adult, because I assume the difference is, you know, addressing it in the present versus
yes.
trying to heal from the from the present back to the past.
Right. So with the adult, part of the relationship that one forms is they want the therapist, say, or the coach, often wants to be liked by the client, and the client wants to not look crazy and liked by the coach. And what I try and do is not collude with that, because that's what they've been experiencing all along, is to say it as it is and say what I really feel. That's what I'm being paid for. I'm not being paid to be their friend. With the child, it's a much more, it's a little bit more dynamic, because they don't have all those thoughts in place. I want you to like me. Of course, they want to be loved and liked, but it's a much more natural, of course, you'll like me. And of course, whatever I bring to the table, that's okay. They don't have that concept, you're going to think I'm weird. So in many ways, it's an easier transition when they're younger. Let's put it that way. With the adult, it might be more of a journey of pain and suffering.
Hmm. Which you're gonna say both, I'm sure, but
Uh,
which do you feel drawn to more?
I'm very drawn to the adult,
Hmm.
because I just think that the work there, when I see that a person who has come to accept all the parts of themselves, what they are giving to the world, I have no words for it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so what's that experience like as you start seeing your adult clients shift and grow into, you could say, who they're meant to be or who they want to be, however you want to phrase it. Like, as the coach, what's that experience like watching those transformations?
It's fabulous. It's fabulous to know there's somebody who's feeling healthier and strong, going out there, and who's going to want to give. We are drowning in contacts. I don't know, people have, I don't know how many thousands of contacts, but people are starving for connection.
How do connection and acceptance relate to one another?
Connection is, to me, when you love, like, because it depends on the level of intimacy again, the other person for who they are. You're not expecting them to do things for you. I'm not expecting you to bring me happiness, fulfillment. It's within me. And then I can meet you from a place of acceptance and connection. I might not like everything about you, but that's okay. I don't have to. Because if we're feeling strong in who we are, that's okay. But it's acceptance that you're good just as you are, not to try and change you.
What's your take on when people say that there are others in their lives that are reflecting things that they could be working on from a personal growth standpoint? How do you feel about that theory, and how does that relate to acceptance?
So it depends where it's coming from. It could be coming from a place of, I really see that, not that you could work on yourself, but you might need support. I call them dream teams, that we want to surround ourselves with people who support us, who understand us, who pull us up. If we're the most interesting person in the room, we're probably in the wrong room. That kind of idea, that you want to surround yourself with people who do support you. So it could be coming from a place of, I think you need this, I think that support would be helpful. It could be coming from a place like, if I could change you, then I would be happier. And that never works. We can never change the other. We can always only change ourselves. And as I mentioned, or I'm not sure if I did mention in this interview, when we decided we were coming to Israel, the first people we met along our path were the naysayers. And if you haven't dealt with your doubts and fears, your doubts and fears will just be magnified. But if you've listened to the wisdoms and the teachings of your doubter voice, and you meet another doubter on your path, it'll be an opportunity for you to recommit and reconnect to what you know is your dream and your essence, if it is really a dream that you wish to pursue. And then you'll go for it.
I want to go back to when you said, if you're the most interesting person in the room, it's probably the wrong room. I want to look at a different perspective on that for just a second too, because I agree with you from a personal growth standpoint, right? Like if we're not being challenged, like there are times in my life where I just wasn't challenged, like specifically with my spirituality. I wanted more, I wanted to learn more. I couldn't find anybody that was like really challenging me to keep going. And I felt that was a problem for me, because I really value personal growth as one of my top values. But I also know that I had accomplished certain things at that period of time where, in a lot of ways, in some situations, you could see me as the most interesting person in the room. But I feel like sometimes someone needs to be that person in order for others to be able to develop their personal growth and see something that they either want or want to develop into. So
Well, that is really beautiful, because what you're saying is, on the one hand, you wanted to grow spiritually. So yes, you sought out people who could teach you, but because of the richness of your experience and the positive impact it had on your life, you wanted to help others. So you were coming from a place of generosity. That's how it sounds to me, not from ego. It's, I have this, and I so want to give it and share it with you because I know the value of this. So I would say both and in that case.
Yeah, I think it's an and as well. And that's a concept that I'm actually writing about. It's an and it means that, take whatever you like, leave what you don't like, but you get to customize who you are and the life that you want based on the things that resonate with you. And it could be as extreme as, being a gun owner and being a vegan at the same time, right? Like
right.
I know someone who is that person, right? There's nothing, like we shouldn't feel ashamed of for that, or feel like we have to fit in a box with that or something.
Right. It's again the acceptance.
Yeah. And I think like this is why in our industry we talk a lot about, needing a coach and also coaching, our clients, because
absolutely.
Be in that sandwich. It's like, I know when I feel stagnant, I feel like even though I have still a lot to offer, there's no inspiration within what I have to
Mm-hmm.
offer. I need to be working on something myself. And usually the way it works is like whatever is on my mind threads itself, or whatever I'm working on threads itself into the coaching that I'm doing somehow. It just, not on purpose,
Beautiful.
just always happens that way.
Yes.
So, talk about how you inspire your clients, and how your own personal growth is an influence on the coaching that you do with them.
Well, I think the real bottom line to how inspiration works for me is that real connection and deep listening, and that sense of acceptance that inspires them to believe in themselves, that they can. And I like what you mentioned earlier about you give and people choose. It's almost like, would you use the term smorgasbord, where you have a whole lot of food on a table?
Yeah.
So you have a whole lot of
Like
food
a
of life
buffet.
on the table, a
Yeah.
buffet, yeah.
Yeah.
And you get to choose. You can eat everything if you like, or you can pick and choose what suits you. And I know that I've been really inspirational when my clients ask the question, when it's not me giving my wisdoms, but when they ask questions of themselves, then I know, wow, they're making a shift.
I love that too. I have one client who, like, I'll ask them a question, they might respond, and then they're like, but really what I want to ask myself is,
Beautiful.
and I can just sit back, and you're right. Like,
Exactly.
on one hand, I could be like, oh my God, I'm getting paid for them to ask their own questions. But it's like, well, yeah, like this is like, the point is to have me not be around forever, right? The point is
Exactly.
that I help, like, specifically with the intuition work that I do. My goal is to help strengthen my clients' intuition to the point of where they are so sound in what is right for them, and they're able to make those decisions, that
Right.
they could consult me here or there if they wanted to, but it's like, once they're relying on themselves, like they don't have to have reliance on anyone else unless they want the counsel, and unless they deliver
Right.
the news that they want that. And that is so powerful for me, because I'm thinking of this other client where they always asked others what they should do. They never
Mm.
asked themselves. And now we're coming into this place after, we've worked together since the beginning of the year, where not only are they comfortable with making their own decisions, I see this power and this leadership behind it, where they're excited
Right.
to make their own decisions, and they're
Beautiful.
a lot of celebrating. They're proud of themselves for making their own decisions.
And it is a big celebration, because they probably, if you look at other areas of their lives, you probably see that not only were they asking other people about questions, but they were asking the outside world for everything. Instead of looking within, they were saying, because of you, let's say, I didn't do this, because I don't have enough money, I was born into the wrong family. All these outside reasons, they're now turning inward, and that's why they're smiling so broadly.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, to fill yourself up with celebration. I say this all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and viewers, bear with me, but I I didn't learn to celebrate myself until only a couple years ago. I always came, I studied music for so long, and it was like this kind of thing where I would listen back to a recording and I'd be like, oh, I was flat there, or I came in late there, or, the horns weren't completely uniform in that section, right? And I
Right.
was always looking for that
For,
perfect
for
recording.
what wasn't there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it took going to a seminar, like a motivational seminar with my husband. And this is why I love my husband so much, because we just complement each other in like the best ways. And I wouldn't be a coach today if it weren't for him. And he
Mm.
brought me to this seminar, and there was a man up on the stage, and he was talking about celebration and, pat yourself on the back, and the whole audience in the stadium were patting ourselves on the back. And then he's up there and he said, you really need to, we don't swear on this program, but we really need to shake your butt, and so he's dancing up there and he's wiggling his butt at us. And it's like, it clicked for me that like, oh my God, I've never, I've never celebrated myself. And once I
Mm-hmm.
started doing that, my whole life changed. So it's something that I heavily thread into the coaching that I do because it's so important. So I'm wondering how you and your clients celebrate together when they have these accomplishments.
Such a big celebration when they discover it themselves. But what I've also noticed is that the minute I just sit back and I don't know what the next question or the next way we're going to do this is, when I step out of that, when I'm in that mode, I'm in absence. I'm not in presence. When I when I can be and I don't know what the next thing's going to happen between us, then I'm in full presence. And that again is where that expansiveness comes. And the person can really celebrate themselves because it's not like I've got this text that I've got to follow, the script, you know?
Yeah, and I find like when, a while ago I got really comfortable with just sitting in that silence and giving the client that space because what I've found is like they might respond and they might feel like they're done. And then if I just sit there and give them the space and I'm just comfortably looking at them, the next thing that they say is the treasure. It's
Exactly.
that extension of their response and being able to give that space for them to keep talking. It's usually that next sentence that is like where the shift happens.
Right. It's not the wow, I get that now. It's the silence. So is this the next? So and then the question sometimes comes, that magical question,
Yeah.
whatever that is, you know.
And
Yeah.
that is the intuition work that I do. That's, I don't just help individuals, I help other coaches get to that comfortable space with their own intuition so they never have to think about the next question. It just comes, you
That
know?
is so beautiful because so many times they think, because as you say, of the money, I need to know what the next brilliant question is. But no, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen between us. Let's see. Let's
Yeah.
explore this together.
Yeah, so let's talk about that trust because for me, it comes down to just trusting that my outer power is going to allow me to be clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and that I don't have to struggle. Again, like resistance is a big theme in my life right now. Like I recently moved and I, there's a lot of resistance here. And I talked to my husband about it and I said, something's wrong here. Are you feeling this resistance too? And he said, yeah. And I said, I think we need to leave. And he said, I think you're right. So we're moving again. And it's only been 7 months, but I keep saying to him, I'm so proud of us. And I'm proud of us because we could be sitting here for 7 years hating living here, but
Exactly.
it's going to be expensive and it's going to it's not ideal to buy a house and then sell it 7 months later and buy another one, but it is going to be worth it in the big picture. Money is just money. Do you know what I mean? And it's like when you are in tune with your intuition and something doesn't feel right, to be able to acknowledge, like really hear that, acknowledge it and act on it to make it to make sure that your life is what you want to live, like that we can celebrate.
Because you might save money on not moving now, but then you'll probably spend a lot more money on fixing what's going wrong inside of you because of that. And
That's
possibly
true.
the bitterness, bitterness and resentment might come grow up with between you and your husband or other people, and that will take money to repair.
Yep.
Yeah. So good
And
good on you.
now we're at the point where all we do is laugh when we hit the resistance. And it happens every day. It doesn't matter if it's going out to eat or if it's something more major, like, going to an experience at a doctor's office. Like it just doesn't matter. It's everywhere. And it's like, it's almost like, okay, outer power, like we get it. Like we get it. We're working on it, because everywhere we go down here, it's just like, we're blocked. So I can almost like be absolutely grateful for how obvious it is so that we're able to make this decision and kind of move out of it.
Right.
So
And I see those blocks as just like, okay, you need to change direction, right? If you came up upon a roadblock, you need to change direction. So as you say, as we said, bringing us back to the beginning of when we started talking, it's a lesson. And what is the lesson? Oh, I'm on the wrong path here. So let me realign.
yeah. And someone recently, I'm going to butcher this, but someone recently said to me that a, a roadblock, I think that's how he said it, is actually a stepping stone to something else in your life. So instead of thinking, I like the redirecting too, but recently it's like it's almost like pole vaulting, like where you like if you were to like pole vault yourself on top of a huge rock, let's say, and then you can just launch yourself off. Like I like thinking of it in terms of that because I like thinking of like going through something. Um, but I almost feel like we have to reserve those. Be, yeah, I'm like thinking about this out loud in my head. Like it's one thing to find the ease and step away from the resistance, but then I think every once in a while we need to tackle something. Maybe it's when that pattern comes in. Maybe when it's a pattern, it's a stepping stone to something else and you have to go through it. But otherwise, to find where the ease is versus the resistance, maybe that's when we change direction. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, or we get into absence, when we try and this is the resistance. Well, I'm just going to change it to an easy, whatever, instead of accepting. And so just hang on a minute. Our lives are so fast paced as well today. Just let me breathe a minute. Let me see what messages are coming to me.
Yeah, I like that because if we stick with that analogy, it's like you can just stand there and you can look at that huge boulder or you can look around and say, okay, what are my other options? Which direction could I go to get around this too? And instead of just being on automatic pilot, taking that direction or doing that same thing, you can really pause and decide, okay, am I in a maze and I just keep taking different directions and I'm still in the maze? Or is this big boulder here so that I can launch myself out of this maze and be in a whole nother world, right?
Right. And what I love about your analogies, can I just launch myself out? Very often we say, if I need to know this, I need to have this information, this and these conditions before I get started on my path. But no, you're going to learn things once you take that first step. So you might need to launch yourself onto the boulder and get a different perspective. And yes, and don't ask questions, but don't get so bogged down by all the questions and the knowledge that you need to have. I need to have this certificate before I can do that, whatever. Because that's part of the journey. You don't know all the answers. We cannot know all the answers. That's also about letting go of the control. And then you can be open to, okay, let me see. This is a new world that I've got to navigate. What skills do I need to learn? Or who needs to be part of my dream team here
Yeah,
in the
and
community?
so that made me think of like being in the mental dimension too much, like thinking that you need this credential or thinking that you need this
Right.
answer. And at the beginning of our interview, I I mentioned that the balance needs to be there. And I know you very gently and lovingly like sort of challenged that a little bit, but I'll tell you why I believe that that is so critical. It's because when we're too high, when we're like spiking too high in one of our dimensions, whether it's like thinking too much in our mental or leading with too much emotion that's not serving us, or we have too much fear and anxiety in sort of our gut area, or which is what happened to me, we're spiritually lifting ourselves off the ground where we don't tether ourselves to reality anymore.
Yeah.
When I experienced going too high in one of the dimensions, that's when it came to me that, okay, we can fluctuate within these depending on what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. But
Right.
in order for that flow, that intuitive flow to really be strong and balanced and healthy, we have to have like normal fluctuation, like not spiking like this in the
Yes.
near term, but
I
just
think that's the key, the fluctuation, the flow. We go through, sometimes it's good to be more in our heads and sometimes more in our emotions. And I love that. It's also, I understood, if I understood you correctly, when you said about the spiking, that you felt it was too much. It's got to, you are the measure. It's not me who can say, wow, you're an extremist, right? Extremist spiritualist. Can I say that? It's, you need to feel that on yourself. I'm spending too much time here. I need to get in touch with my other parts.
yeah, because you could even be unipolar in the sense that like a lot of people will talk about depression, right? And in a lot of ways, if your life is depressed like that, like long term, you could say that that person is like unipolar on like a lower sort of mood level or
Yes.
lower energy level. But you can also be unipolar in the higher level. And I feel like society sometimes and even our coaching industry like promotes us being in this unipolar, like always positive, always like, you know, visualizing, always. And I
With
find
that
that it's,
natural bandwidth,
yeah,
that narrow bandwidth.
I find that it's too much for me sometimes. It's not that I'm not a visual person. It's not that not a positive person. It's just when you take it to the extreme, it it's detrimental for me. I know someone else who is unipolar in sort of that higher space, but it really works for her.
Right.
Like it works for her life,
Absolutely.
it works for her personality. So who's to say it's bad or not? Like we've learned in coaching that we don't really judge something bad or good. It just is.
Right.
So yes, you're right. It's based on you saying this feels good to me or this does not feel good to me.
Right. And acceptance then that this is, I understand that that's how you need to live. It doesn't work for me, but I can accept that that's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. I love this. Okay. So we've talked about a lot today. If you had to summarize, and I know you did this sort of at the beginning, but if you had to summarize the impact due to the work that you do with your clients, what is the ultimate impact you believe you're having with your clients?
I believe I'm reminding them of their power, how powerful they are as human beings.
Mm,
I would say, if I have to give you one sentence, that they can go out and live their life of a life of their dreams.
mm. And when they get to that point where they realize their own power, what does that world look like for them?
They're in a state of really being able to give and contribute their strengths and their gifts. When I use the word power, how powerful they are, how impactful they can be on this world. Maybe that would be a better word than powerful. Maybe powerful is too strong a word, but I would say impactful. A dream is simply what matters to you. It doesn't have to be big, Mother Teresa. It can simply be, I want to spend more time with my children. I want to
Mm,
spend one afternoon meditating, going to the gym 3 times a week, whatever it is, walking for 10 minutes a day. It can be really small. It's what matters to you because it'll fill you. And once you've filled, that's when you've got what to give. When you're working on empty, you've got nothing to give. And I think a life in contribution, sorry, is the ultimate.
yeah, I was just going to ask about that. Like how much of a shift from self do you see going to being selfless in your clients?
What does that mean? How much of a shift do I see?
So
Is
if,
it
you know, a lot of clients come in to me and I, you know, without judgment, it just kind of is, they are either inside their own heads or they're thinking about themselves or they're the self-care that they're doing is almost like more like in a selfish way, like how do I get what I want?
yes,
After working with me, that starts transforming from looking inward, what can I get for myself, to how can I help others? So I'm wondering, how much of a transition and what does that look like in your clients when they go from sort of a more closed perspective to an open giving perspective?
So when they come in and they're, as you said, about themselves, it's out of a desperation. No one, they're not getting it, the nurturing, the nourishment from anywhere else. And they've come because they now know that they need the support, they need the help. And then when they can really do that transition of filling themselves up and seeing what their gifts are, seeing what their strengths are, seeing, as you say, the beautiful sounds in that piece of music, not what went wrong, what was beautiful in that, what's beautiful in me, what's special in me that I can give, then it's like, it's magic, it's magical. And
Yeah,
then it translates to that contribution.
so our viewers are watching and I know they're saying, I want this. I want to learn how to do this. I want to become that powerful, impactful person. How do they do that? How do they contact you?
So I have a website which they can contact me through, www.bev.co.il. Very easy, Bev Coyle. I have a Facebook page, Dream and Live Joyfully. My second name is Joy. They can join my Facebook group, Live Your Dream. Those are some of the ways they can contact me. They can contact me through email, bever, bevehr, @gmail.com. A gift for your viewers is that I will definitely set up a time to speak with them and see if I can help them with their clarity, help them uncover some obstacles and inspire them to take action. I'm happy to give them a session to see if I can help them.
And viewers, I had a session with Bev because she offered that to me, and it was definitely instrumental in even kind of coming out of the funk that I was in, as I described earlier, in this with this move that I decided to make, and after her session, it was so helpful for me to start coming out of that funk and really understanding what I needed to do to make my life a happy one and love living every day and live in that flow. So it works, guys. It works. Reach out to Bev. Bev, I really want to thank you for being on today. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. And if I can just give your viewers a message, live now as if you've created that dream. Think of the feelings you'd have by living your dream life and start living that way today as if you've already created it, as if you've already made it come true.
I love that. And viewers, I'm sure you resonate with that. You know, it's like visualization is so impactful. And I don't know if you've ever even written a list of to-dos and then it gets lost. And a month later, you come back and you look at it and everything's done. You know, it really, you know, we used the term magic before and you can use that term, but it's real at the same time. You know, when we visualize, when we know we're going to accomplish something, when we set out to do it, it works. It really does. So
sometimes, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry. I tell people, look at your done list at the end of the day.
I love that perspective, the done list, right?
Yeah.
Poetic, what we've been talking about. So viewers, I hope you enjoyed this. I love you guys. We'll catch you next time. Bev, thanks again. Bye.
Bye. Okay,
Yeah.
how's that? Oh, okay, hang on. I'll just get closer. I wonder if I can talk without my earphones.
You might be able to. Let's test it.
Can I talk without my earphones?
Nope, you need them.
How does that look? No, that's also not good, right? Because that's that light.
Well, your nose down is the right lighting, but your nose up is not.
Okay, girl, we're good to go.